We don't have 4,000 years of combined experience, and that's a good thing. And here's why.
Welcome to Inside Stellar, a podcast where we bring you behind the scenes to experience how Stellar builds deals, solves challenges, and makes the strategic calls that shape a growing business in connectivity. Stellar brings in perfect internet on the move by leveraging all cellular, Wi Fi, and satellite networks into one unbreakable internet solution. Natalia, Dursun, and Simone here, and today we'll be talking about how to thrive if your competition is 100 times bigger than you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
So, is it a curse or a blessing to be a small fish in a big pond?
Great question. Dursun?
I think it's like a coin, right? Coin has two sides. So I think being a small company has its blessings as well as its curse. I think one of the blessings I'll mention is, unlike big companies, smaller companies like Stellar, for example, we are much more flexible in serving our customers because, in my experience, what I see sometimes clients come to us with the experience of working with big companies where things are so set in stone that it can be very rigid and they have to follow a very rigid procedure. They have an offer, the contract that oftentimes also ties them down with a commitment. And when they come to Stellar, they're surprised because we are successful if our clients are successful. We try to meet them where they are. We don't have a minimum commitment requirement. We also try to be flexible to the extent we can in order to meet the needs of our customers. So if we have to experiment, try new things, we are open to it. I think much more than a big established company where they have rules to follow and it's very difficult to get out of those rules.
Simona, what are your thoughts? Blessing or curse?
Both, right? I mean, I completely agree with Dursun. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse in general. I just know that I like a lot being a nimbler entity rather than a dinosaur. If by dinosaur we mean large, unmovable objects. And the reason being is that we are seeing it now every month. We're having customers coming to us by saying, oh, we're having a problem with our insert decade-old company supplier. Can you help us with it? And typically we end up with a discussion with the customer, understanding their needs, issuing a contract, shipping our devices, of course, signing the contract first, shipping our devices, all of that happening before their supplier even responds to the ticket the first time. And so I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing. I know it's easy to be a small company because we get a lot of business just as a spillover because large companies don't know how to execute. And then there is also a matter of what large company. Are you a large company that got structured over time to be large? Or are you a large company that is growing inorganically through acquisition of multiple companies and you don't let yourself the time to incorporate the best practices of all those companies you're acquiring? Because there are a lot of companies that are large because they became large and they're still like phenomenal executors. There are other companies that quintuple in size in 2 years, and the result is it's a patched approach that will never satisfy any customer. And I love those companies because they are our largest marketing tool.
Yeah, so there's a lot of positives in being small, and it's about using those to our advantage, right? So speed, whether it's the speed in tech, the speed in the team, the speed to communicate with the customer, and also all of the other things that you mentioned. So yeah, I think if it's used to an advantage, it's definitely a blessing. Is there any other advantage that you can think of, or any kind of situations where you saw us being more of an advantage because we're smaller than some of this competition when you were talking to potential customers, for example?
I think one advantage that I'm seeing very often is the ability to set up partnerships on the spot. There are moments in which a customer needs something which is not properly our own internal solution offering or innovation, but we have the ability to go to the best tested by us provider of that solution, we're capable of signing a partnership, bundling their solution with ours, offering that single, let's say, one-stop shop approach to the customers, and we're capable of doing that within, I don't know, 48 hours, as opposed to a multi-month M&A equivalent approach that a very large company would need to do.
And maybe another one I could add, but that is like really, I think, comes as a blessing and a curse, right? So when you are a smaller company and less known company, the good thing is you don't bring the baggage of, history and the perception, image, which can be a good thing because it sounds refreshing. Sometimes our clients have worked or have heard enough about these big players being either mistreated or didn't get proper service or were overcharged and so on. So they bring this kind of negative baggage about these companies. And so when you are somewhat new or small, it kind of helps you to position yourself better in our case. But of course, the downside is the same can apply in the reverse, right? Because you are maybe smaller company and not so much well known as the big players, that can be a bit of a downside. Then, like as a sales people, specifically in my case, then really comes down to positioning ourselves in a way that we might not have the years of image built in the industry, but we're still reliable because of X, Y, and Z, right? And trying to tap into those listings that we've mentioned, right? Try to play them in our favor.
And I think what I hear a lot in our conversations in the sales team, what we hear from the customers is we're much more adaptable. So there's many different things that are different between the companies that we work with. And maybe for some, an advantage in our contract is something specific. And for another company, it would be just a little modification in something specific in the contract as well. And we are able to adapt that in the contract. However, if you're a big company with a lot of rules that you have to abide to and follow, it's not as easy to bring those advantages to the customers on a more customizable basis, no matter their size. Because that's also something we pride ourselves in, is that we don't expect a certain number of orders from a company in order to do these kinds of modifications. So that's also something that I see.
And it goes even beyond sales, right? I mean, our operations team can execute at a speed where, I mean, we're seeing it. Every time we partner with a much, much larger company to deliver an order, we are never the bottleneck. It's never going to happen. So by the time we ship hundreds or thousands of devices, that larger company is still trying to process an incoming order. So on one side, I mean, again, that's why I said, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. I don't even know if responding to this in a sort of unequivocal way is the right thing to do. I just think that there are advantages and disadvantages, and our job is to exploit those advantages to the fullest. Now, the most annoying thing, if we want to move the conversation there, of being a small company is that there is a specific type of customer, and we can discuss what type of customer is, what are the taxonomy features of that customer, that is always going to be asking, yeah, but you are not insert large company, why should we trust you? And now the obvious sort of like smart ass answer to that is, I mean, thankfully we're not that company. That's the reason why you're talking to us. That company had time to prove to you that they don't know how to work. At least with us, you will find out very soon how we can bring you a solution. But again, there is a very specific type of customer that is asking for these things. And in those scenarios, in interaction, when I understand that the customer is that type of customer, that I wish would have 10 years more of experience just to be able to sort of like brush off this rapid and frankly useless objection that the customer would make.
Yeah, indeed. That also reminds me an interaction I had, for example, with one of the customers that have operations in US and Europe. The big concern and the big question mark was, how big are you guys? How long you've been in the market? How many of your SIM cards are already serving the various customers? And it is a legitimate question, obviously, right? Because they are concerned in terms of continuity of their supply. They want to make sure we don't just from one day to another disappear and they're unable to run their business. And I think in such instances, bringing examples of customers, maybe not sharing the names, but overall kind of the use cases and what we enable through our connectivity really kind of helps them have peace of mind and say, okay, so if they are working in this and that industry and also serving similar customers like us, at least that kind of gives them a bit of, a peace of mind, I would say. It is indeed like comes up in conversations.
And one thing that we're doing to also address this, because I think you're saying the right question, like the customer is never concerned about our length in the past, like our life length in the past. Their question, which is a very correct and legitimate question to ask, is will you outlive me? Can you outlive me? If I'm designing a new solution, a new digital service, security cameras for the highway right now that we connect a lot already. If a customer is coming to us and designing a solution that is supposed to be on the market for the next 12 years, they want to be sure that we're going to be on the market for at least 13 years.
Yeah.
Right, that's the point. And so it makes complete sense from the risk assessment, strategic viewpoint, the customer must ask these questions. Now, to handle this is not like we don't handle it with random words. We handle it by actually making sure that every time we have suppliers behind or service providers, they're always linked to us through what we call a service takeover agreement. Should something happen to Stellar or to, and this is probably valid for any of the small companies, the way they should act. Should anything happen to Stellar, because anything can happen to Kodak goes out of business. Nokia lost their consumer business. So anything should happen to any company, there has to be immediate and seamless business takeover agreement behind so that their customers do not sense any discontinuity or interruption of service. The quality of that service may change in terms of the quality of their experience as a customer may change because the service provider behind it would change, but they would have no operational discontinuities on the field.
Yeah, and I think those questions are very valid and understandable from a customer to look back, just ask, okay, does your product service actually work? And then looking forward, will you be able to outlive me? Which makes a lot of sense. But something we also have to remember is, okay, when those boxes are ticked, we don't need 10 years of history or even more. It's also what's the future. Part of our solution is AI, an AI solution which does a lot of the productivity for the networks to make sure that the connection is seamless. That's not something that's been existing for 10 years or more. It's something that's
No, it's exactly. It's completely irrelevant. Like when a customer tells you, oh, but you don't have 30 years on the market like this one. And we're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. The solution has been existing for 1 year and a half and we've created it. So it completely doesn't matter what is the combined. Like for me, it makes me laugh a lot when there are those companies that are very big and they go on the market and like, we have 4,000 years of combined experiences. So you were building pyramids before. What were you doing, right? So, those metrics make no sense. And as you said, Nati, the customer will always tell you, oh, they want to check what is your lifetime on the market because they want to be sure that the system works. And yet the customer will always want to run a proof of concept anyway.
Right.
So then, test it with the proof of concept. Yes, we're very grateful that we have most of our customers that reason like that. If I can actually say, because I was teasing it earlier, there is a specific type of customer which is always the most difficult to handle. What I found in my experience is that the customer that is always bringing the aspect of, have you been in the market for at least 30 years or will you be on the market for at least the next years, is that customer which is typically a medium-sized, privately owned company where the main owner is also the chairman of the board and he is 60 plus, I would say. It makes complete sense that for that type of person, who's in fact the ultimate decision maker for a company, of 100 people or something like that, 200 people maximum, that person feels comfort in knowing that there is a company on the market that has been living as long as he has been living, or she or they have been living. But at the same time, it's just a personal comfort, mental convenience, but in reality, it doesn't matter at all for what the solution that is asking for.
It's something that is known at that point, so it's easier to make that decision. And what about the impact of our size on the partnerships that we make? Does Is it a blessing or a curse on that side?
Speed, right? Speed is certainly a blessing. What is a curse? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there is a curse related to partnerships. I mean, you want to be when you set up partnerships. You don't want to be as big as your partner. You want to bring a benefit to your partner, and the partner needs to bring a benefit to you. Do you have any example? I didn't find any
maybe
reason for
Yeah, maybe in terms of like the client base, the network, assumption being that if the company is of bigger scale, then they might have a bigger pool of customers your partner can tap into. So that might be one advantage of.
But they don't let you access. You're right. But in practice,
theory,
they don't let you
yeah,
access those.
exactly,
So
right?
it's
It's a
almost
bit.
like every time we're partnering with a large company, it's us bringing customers to the large company as opposed to the other way around,
Yeah.
which is good. I mean, we make money on that.
But I think that's again kind of going back to this flexibility, right? I feel like we are much more open also to collaborate. We don't just brush off any idea. We consider, we're open to ideas, and then we are of course picky. We try to build partnerships that make sense for us, for the partners, for our customers, right? But initially we are open to ideas, and I think we are flexible in our approach, and that's why I think, correct me if I'm wrong, my impression is at Stellar we are not afraid of competition or recommending clients to clients as long as we are confident in what we do. And I think we're very confident in what we do. Clients come for their reasons and they stay because of the blessings we have mentioned. They appreciate, they have an amazing experience with us from day one. That's why we are not afraid that our customers will switch the boat, right? So I think that also maybe helps in a way. Our partners have the confidence because we're open. We're open, not afraid, flexible, and I think that does benefit the part like building partnerships and maintaining them.
And we could possibly have an episode on partnerships in the future, I'm assuming. But one thing that matters is that, again, for us, we track customer satisfactions in a couple of ways. First of all, customers tell us that they're actually really happy of dealing with us. And it's completely unprompted. We didn't send surveys around as large companies do because they have internal communication or marketing metrics to handle. This is really customers that are genuinely surprised that at 3 a.m. someone writes to us and says, okay, no worries, this thing that was a problem 6 minutes ago is now solved. For them, it's amazing. For us, is the standard modus operandi.
Right. So it's literally using our size to our advantage. It's not whether the size is an advantage or a
Correct.
disadvantage. It's just making the most of it, knowing that we are more adaptable.
Correct. We
we are
cannot buy
faster.
legacy. We cannot buy heritage.
Right.
But we can exploit the fact that typically companies that have a long heritage also have the crappiest operation on the planet. And so you go, we speak to a customer, we onboard the customer, and once the customer tests what it means to be dealing with us, there is no chance. I mean, what is the proof of the no chance? 0% churn that we have today. There is no chance of a customer wanting to say, okay, you know what? I want to go back to that large company. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
So with all of these benefits, what's the opposite of a benefit?
Downside?
What's the downside?
Deficit,
Disadvantage.
downfall, disadvantage.
What's the disadvantage of being a smaller company compared to the giant? 100 times smaller than the competition.
Or 1,000 sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe in terms of Simone, you were mentioning, maybe you can elaborate on this point when it comes to tenders, right? Because I think maybe when you apply, especially for big public or private tenders, then maybe the size, the legacy of the operation size of the company really matters, because then there are certain maybe requirements, prerequisites that you need to meet in order to apply and qualify for these tenders, right?
Correct. And technically, it's actually the same questions that a customer would ask. How long have you been on the market? How much money have you made? How many devices you have on the market? And how long will you stay on the market for? This is translated into the bureaucracy of tenders, public or private procurement tenders. And in that case, I mean, you cannot buy your way into a tender if you don't satisfy minimum requirements. What do you have to do? You have to work with a larger partner that fills the gaps that you don't, so that you cannot bring. So that's why I said, like, there are advantages and disadvantages of being big and small. For tenders, it is a disadvantage being small. It's also an advantage being small because once you make it into the tender, typically you're capable of greatly win that tender by having a better pricing, better operations that you can offer. But to access that tender is much more complex.
And they're also very rigid, right? Because they are very unlike maybe a lot of our customers who are a bit more open-minded, right? Oh, you don't have these criteria, no worries. I
It
still
doesn't matter. Just
I
prove
still
that you know how to do it. Yeah.
exactly give me the testing cards. I'll test it and I'll see and decide for myself. Whereas the tender, you really need to qualify, and there is no way around it. And they are very kind of strict in terms of the rules.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, for sure. We're driving right now to go to what's the name of the transport and logistics?
Transport and logistics in Antwerp.
And maybe this could be the first episode that we publish. It's one of the first we are recordings, but this could be the first episode that we publish. We're recording it from the road, so who knows if the quality of the audio is going to be good. We know that the quality of the internet is.
yeah.
And maybe the best way to finish this podcast is to finish it from there.
Yes.
We can then slap the camera and we'll continue from there.
Okay, see you in Antwerp. We're at Transport and Logistics in Antwerp. Thanks for listening to this episode and tune into the next one in 2 weeks. Thank you.